Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Book 'em Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley and this is a special book club edition of Author Talks Podcast, a podcast here behind the scenes stories, ideas, and writing journeys of authors. This episode is brought to you by Book'em, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookemapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the blockbuster certified Will Packer. Will is the New York Times bestselling author of Who Better Than You? Get your copy today, and that's what we're talking about. He is also an American film producer, founder of the Will Packer Production and Will Packer Media. He has grossed over $1 billion at the worldwide box office with 10 movies opening at number one. Movies that you've heard of, such as Stomp the Yard, Girls Trip, About Last Night, Think Like a Man, Ride Along 1 and 2, to name a few. He is a filmmaker, he is a traveler, a leader, a compelling speaker, a motivator, a Tom Brady hater turned fan, a Falcons minority owner, a FAMU alum, a father, and a husband. Will, welcome to the Author Talks podcast.
Wow, wow, wow. You laid it out. That's a mouthful, sir. You said some things in there I had forgotten.
I was saying, if I
Yes.
missed anything, let me know.
I don't think you missed much, my friend. I think you got it all down. That is pretty accurate. It's interesting. One of the things I talk about in the book is how you're building your brand from the time you're born to the time that you die. You are telling people what value to attribute to you, right? And I talk about how you got to just put your head down and grind.
Thanks.
And a lesson actually that Oprah Winfrey gave me around that, about how, she had this dream of having 6 trees because she grew up and a neighbor who was the well-off neighbor on the block had 6 trees. And
Yep.
she put her head down and she grind and grind and grind and looked up one day and had a whole forest. And she was having this conversation with me as we looked out on her whole forest of trees. And when you were naming everything that I've done, when you're living your life and you're working hard, you're not thinking about all the accomplishments that are stacking up, right? Type A driven people, ambitious people, you go and you just go and you go and you're continuously climbing mountains, right? You have to have balance. I talk about that too. It's not just going, but when you're going, you will sometimes be amazed after when you take a moment to sit back and look down the mountain you've been climbing at how far you've come.
Yep.
And so I say that to people, especially folks that feel like, it is so hard to get started. I don't feel like I've done much. I don't feel like I've been successful. Sometimes you will be surprised if you take a different POV at how far you actually have come. Doesn't mean you don't have further to come. Doesn't mean that you can't go further. But sitting there and listening to you and read those accolades, that's I gotta say, even for me, that's impressive, brother. So thank you, my friend.
Of course, and I love it. You're talking about, it's kind of like the poem if you can wait and not get tired of waiting, or if you can dream and not make dreams your master. Can you talk about
Yes.
that? Because that's one of the poems you mentioned a couple times in the book. So how has that shaped your life and your career?
Rudyard Kipling, man, that was something that my father, when I was growing up, would make me learn. And it is something that he learned in his journey to becoming a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. And well before I understood anything about that and what that meant, the whole, Greek life, I knew the poem If.
Mhm.
And, it talks about if you can dream and not make dreams your master. It talks about if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. It talks about, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and lose it all on one turn of pitch and toss, like gamble it away, right? Try something and lose it, and lose and start again at your beginnings, but never breathe a word about your loss. To me, that poem really symbolizes the journey of all of us as we strive for success. And there's some great pearls of wisdom in there. I choose to pull out the stanza, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. That's the verse that I pull out and talk about in the book, because my mentality is that you can never get too high, you can never get too low. Triumph and disaster are both imposters, they're not real,
Yep.
right? Don't buy into this idea of perfectionist success, and don't buy into this idea of unmitigated failure. Neither are true.
Yep.
right? Stay consistent. The most successful people in the world are those that have been able to have consistency and sustainability. Make that your focus.
Yeah, and when it comes to those two polar sides of things, talk to us a little bit about the ramen noodle days, because again, you spent 10 years working on these films before you got your first number one with Stomp the Yard. Can you talk a little bit to us about those grassroots efforts that you did when it comes to local airways, churches, nightclubs? I think that is really cool. I think you and Tyler Perry are like some of the best at building a full community around a movie that gets people out in the audience. So, can you talk about those days, those ramen noodle days?
Of course, man. Absolutely. I remember them like they were yesterday. People look at me and say, they look at the successes that I've had, but I am very open and honest about the challenges that I've had along the way. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for those ramen noodle days that you refer to. Um, the mantra of my family is if you want to have what others don't, you have to be willing to do what others won't. And if you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're going to have results akin to what everybody else is receiving and how they are resulting and the levels to which they've reached. If you want to do something beyond that, if you want to do something special, if you want to go to the next level, then you have to be willing to do something that other people aren't doing. So for me, that was after graduating from college with an engineering degree, graduated magna cum laude in electrical engineering. Thank you, my friend. I then moved to Atlanta from Tallahassee and started chasing this dream of being a filmmaker. Hollywood could care less.
Yep.
They didn't care. They didn't know me, know who I was. They weren't interested. I wasn't getting calls back. So I had to go out, and myself and my partner, and still good friend to this day, Rob Hardy, we had to get it out the mud, as they say. We had to go out and grind it out. Part of that meant that we were willing to take our little movie. It was called Twa, the first movie we
Yep.
made after graduating from college. Hollywood didn't care. We couldn't get traditional distribution. So we drove from city to city to city. We rented a Ford Excursion. We packed that thing up with flyers for our movie. And we would drive. And I remember the route. We went from Atlanta to Birmingham, Alabama, to Jackson, Mississippi, over to Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, over to North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, down to South Carolina. Like I know because we drove. In every city, we would find the cheapest hotel we could get, right? This is not luxury at all. We would just stay wherever, it was always a Super 8 or a Motel 6 or whatever. And then we would go and hand out our flyers. But we were hustling. We were doing what other people wouldn't do. We would hand out our flyers at the mall. We would hand out our flyers at the club. We would hand out our flyers in churches. We would put them on cars. Anybody that would listen to us. Then we would go to radio stations and we would try to convince the DJs to give us like 30 to 60 seconds of airtime in between the commercial spots or in between right before they would play a song. They'd have a little moment of DJ talk and we'd say, we got a movie and it's opening this weekend at the local theater. Please let us come on and just talk about it. This is the movie. This is what we're doing. And we got a lot of no's. A lot of people were like, I'm not risking my job for y'all. I don't even know y'all. This is crazy. I just
Yep.
got this gig. I'm not about to have you on the radio and mess my good thing up, right? But some people said yes. And that's all it took was those some people who said yes. So it was challenging. It was hard. And I say this to people that are in the middle in a season in their lives where it's hard,
Yep.
where things are tough. Remember the possibility of success. The subtitle of my book is The Art of Healthy Arrogance and Dreaming Big. And I talk about in defense of dreaming big. You have to dream big because life is so hard, because it is so challenging, because you're going to run into obstacles that if your dream isn't huge, not just an average dream, right? If you don't have a big, supersized dream, then inevitably you're going to run into a challenge and you're going to say, I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good. This is not worth it, right? You have to have a dream that's so big that the possibility of success outweighs not just the potential for failure, but also the possibility of success outweighs the work the challenges, the obstacles that you're going to face because it's worth it. That's why I tell people dream big.
Yep.
Don't dream minor, mediocre, medium. I'm talking about as big as you can dream. Whatever you can wrap your mind around, that's the limit. Not the sky, not the ceiling. It's some galaxy far, far away. That's how you got to think.
Yeah, one of the presidents at Morehouse, Benjamin Elijah Mays, that's where I went to school. He talks about not failure, but low aim is sin. You know, it's the idea of shooting for the moon and making sure that you go for it. Talk to me a little bit about I'm thinking like a movie like Nora that just won the Oscars. How do you
Yeah.
make a budget stretch? You know, as far as when you're making those films that might be on shorter budgets, when it comes to pre-production, post-production for young filmmakers.
Listen, I tell people all the time, you can make a movie for any budget.
Yeah.
Okay. It is just a matter of what movie you're making and what resources you're going to have. So, you can make a $10 movie, you can make $100 million. They're going to be different movies, but ultimately, what are the resources that you're able to get your hands on? You have to be able to make your movie work within those parameters.
Yep.
I tell the story of how when we were first making our movie Twa that we drove around city to city, we were trying to raise six figures, mid six figures, right? And actually high six figures, trying to raise $750,000 to shoot that movie. This is back before you could, shoot on an iPhone. You had to go out and get film, actually have film cameras,
See?
full sound equipment, right? You had to project it on a screen. And 750 is what we were trying to raise. We couldn't get anywhere close to that. But instead of getting hung up on what we weren't able to raise, and this is what happens to a lot of people, they get stuck on the first rung. They're trying to get going, and it's so hard, so difficult sometimes just to get going that you can get stuck on the first rung. Don't allow that to happen. I said, instead of setting a financial goal, we are going to set a time goal.
Yep.
So instead of saying we're going to raise $750,000 and we're not going to shoot our movie until we raise that amount, we're going to say whatever we can raise in 3 months, that's going to be the budget of the movie. And 3 months came and 3 months went, and we were able to raise a whopping $75,000. A far cry from what we were trying to raise. And guess what we shot the film for? $75,000. And it was a small film, right?
Yeah.
Your question about resources is that we had to allocate the resources proportionately to what we had. We couldn't spend what we wanted to spend on actors. We couldn't spend what we wanted to spend on locations. We had to only shoot places where we could get them for free. We had to only work with actors who would work for SAG minimum,
Yep.
whatever that was at that time. But it told people that we could do it, that we could do something, that we could complete a project. We needed to be able to show that we could make a movie. It didn't matter the budget. The other thing that it did was it showed ourselves. It proved to us that we were able to go out and do it. And sometimes you got to fabricate momentum for yourself so that you convince yourself. The whole concept of my book is that you have to realize that you deserve success. You have to have a mentality of healthy arrogance, which says I can walk into any room on the planet. I can stand next to anybody, and I deserve to be in that room. I have something to add, something to contribute. The most successful people I've been around have that healthy arrogance.
Yep.
Part of that mentality is building your own confidence muscle. Just like any other muscle, you got to work it. One of the ways that you can work and to build that muscle is by having a success. It doesn't have to be a huge outside success, but a success on any level you continue to build.
Yeah, I love this story that you tell about. I think it was with the Hudlins when he says, "Oh, you got this movie shot and you
Yeah.
have it on DVD. We can watch it." That tangibility. A lot of times, when people are kind of going for their big dreams, they don't have like that one core. You know, like in business, we talked about having the MVP or having something that you can show investors that you're doing something.
Yeah.
I love that you're talking about that in the story too.
Yes, 100%. I mean, look, it is film. It's this is not something that's specific to film, but film, like a lot of industries, is a very competitive industry. Hollywood gets a lot of attention, right? It's a glossy, glamorous, sexy industry. A lot of people think they want to be in it. It means you got a lot to cut through. You have to do something to make yourself stand out. Hollywood is an industry of a lot of talkers. A lot of people saying what they're gonna do, what they're about to do, what they're working on. What Warrington and Reginald Hudlin said to me was, "You are already a step ahead of the game because you have this movie that you've shot. So you're not just another person that's talking about it. You
Yep.
have something to show, right? You're being about it." So that applies in any industry. Have something that you can show, that you can show people that you have done.
Yep. Can we talk a little bit about Think Like a Man? Because we're in the book space. I would love to hear just kind of how that whole option and rights kind of went through, or how do you think about in terms of forming a guidebook into a movie and some of those things. And even when you talk about how you all kind of pioneered some of the way you marketed the book, just talk about that a little bit, because I think that for a lot of us in the book space, that's like important to see how like a book like that can turn into a movie.
Yeah, sure. The process of Think Like a Man was that I heard about the book before I ever read it.
Mm.
And I heard about it because there was so much buzz amongst Black women. And I remember I was picking up somebody from a hair salon one time, and the book was there, and a hairdresser was chastising another hairdresser because they had had the book too long. And this hairdresser was saying, "It's my turn to get it," right? Sheila had it, then Rebecca had it. Now you got it. I haven't had it yet. Y'all give me the book. I need to see it. And the business mind in me said, "You know what? That's 4 or 5 people that have all read the book, but only one book has been sold. So
Mm.
whatever the numbers are, the reach and the impact is beyond that with this book." And I realized that this was a thing that was buzzing and that people were talking about that hadn't quite hit at that time, the mainstream um, press,
Yep.
and it didn't have a lot of Hollywood studios coming after it. And I reached out to Steve Harvey through his person. It was a guy named Rashawn McDonald, his manager. And I said, "Hey, I would love to take this book and turn it into a movie." And at the time, they were just kind of starting to ramp up to do the press tour. And he said he didn't write this book to turn it into a movie. It's not a narrative. That's not really something he's thinking about right now. We focus on getting the book out. And I said, "Okay, well, listen, I appreciate you taking the call. If you ever do want to turn it into a movie, this is who I am." And I wasn't a huge producer at that time. I had a couple minor hits, but I said, "This is who I am, and I'd love to be a part of adapting the book." And shortly thereafter, the book blew up and had full on mainstream success and was, number one on all the lists. And he was sitting down with Oprah multiple times on her show. Like, it became a thing. And once that happened, all the Hollywood studios started calling.
Yep.
And to Steve's credit, he remembered that I was one of the first people to call him. And he remembered there was a young brother before all the big studios were coming that had reached out about that book. Now, he didn't give me a discount. Make no mistake, right? Steve Harvey is a businessman. So Steve didn't say, "I'm gonna give it to you because you reached out first, because you were a young brother, I'm gonna give it to you for free." What he said was, "If you can bring me a deal that is comparable to these other deals that are being offered, it's yours. I'm gonna go with you," because we all wanted the rights to
Yep.
turn the book into a movie. And I had a relationship with Sony Screen Gems at the time. And I went and took it to the head of Screen Gems and asked him to read the book. And he read it over the course of a weekend and came back. And we already started talking about how we would turn it into a movie. He said, "Let's do it. I'm in." And I went to Steve. Now it wasn't just me. I had a major studio backing me. And I came after that book, and we came after it hard. And to Steve's credit, he said he was true to his word.
Yep.
And he gave me an opportunity to make that book. In terms of adaptation, it's interesting you asked that question because we talked a lot about that. And This will give you kind of an inside peek into film strategy and into the thinking of a movie producer. So we had to figure out how to turn what was a relationship advice book into a movie. And the book didn't have a narrative, but we needed to create a narrative around the brand that was the book. And we realized that the core audience for the book was women, primarily Black women. And so we felt like going in, making the entry point into the movie, Black female characters would be number one, expected.
Yeah.
Number two, kind of doubling down on an audience, a core audience that you already have. So we took an unconventional approach and said, we're going to tell this movie through the eyes of men, through the eyes of guys. And that's why the movie has that an incredible ensemble cast, but the central characters through whose POV we tell the narrative are Kevin Hart, Michael Ealy, Jerry Ferrara, Terrence J, uh, uh, Gary Owen, right? Romney Malco. So we did that because we felt like, okay, women are aware of it, women know about it. Let's actually take an opportunity to, number one, try to bring in a different audience. Number two, try to do something unexpected with the narrative.
Yep. No, that's good. Kind of just to go kind of into it. You talked a little bit about the packaging. I kind of think of like a Mike. There's a book called "Who Is Michael Ovitz." He talks about he started the CAA. He's talking about how you package those films. So I really saw that through what you're talking about in that story. I want to also talk a little bit about team because you have a chapter where you're talking about riding, dying, and selling oranges. You're talking about you need a Shayla. You talk about working with Rob Hardy. What skills do you look for in a great team? And then also I think about like an Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell or like an Adam McKay who go back to their same teams over and over again. And you work with a lot of different the same actors and actresses when it comes to Kevin Hart and them. So talk to us about team and all that.
That's so important. I mean, you're nothing without your team, period.
Yeah.
I'm nothing without my team. But you got to be very specific and selective when you think about the people you're putting around you. Each of us have a finite amount of energy that we can expend, right? But the world has an infinite amount of distractions and things that are draining that energy. So you have to protect your energy. One of the ways you do that is by being very selective about who's in your circle, because nothing drains you more than the people closest to you.
Yep.
But nothing can augment your energy like the folks that are closest to you. So it's very, very important that you are very specific and deliberate about who you're allowing into your energy. The chapter you referred to, riding, dying, and selling oranges, is about having an incredible right hand. And it's two things that I highlight in that chapter. One is when you, as an outsider, an aspirant, somebody who's trying to endeavor to accomplish something, are looking to get to people of a certain level, of a certain ilk, of a certain status, with certain titles. Everybody goes after those people whose names are, above the door, so to speak, right? But each of them have a right hand who has an undue and outsized amount of influence on them. And sometimes getting to that person can be just as or more valuable than getting to the person whose name everybody knows. For me, that person's name is Shayla, so I reference her. And so that's a bit of business advice and strategy
Yep.
that I give to folks in this book. The second thing is that you have somebody that has your back no matter what, who is truly not just hardworking, not just have the skills, but is really loyal. You get a couple of those folks, and you ought to consider yourself very, very fortunate and very lucky. Pour into them, feed into them, because at the end of the day, you're only as strong as the person that's sitting next to you. And so for me, having somebody that is extremely, number one, hardworking, because you got to match my work ethic and I work hard. Number two, good. You got to be good at your job. But number three, loyal. You have somebody that's loyal. You put a team together based on diverse set of skills, people that have a proficiency in various areas and people that are loyal to you, you will not lose. I promise you. Doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter their background, doesn't matter their ethnicity, their demographic. I don't care about any of that. You get you some really, really good, proficient, loyal people, and you're gonna win.
Yeah, speaking of loyalty, can you talk a little bit about meeting your wife at the Essence Fest? Because again, we're in the book space. We love to hear the meet cute stories and how it happened. Can you talk about that and how how your marriage has helped your career, your personal life, family, everything?
Yeah, I was at the Essence Festival, and I was actually there with Idris Elba, and he was there, and we were doing some promotions, and he had a party that he had to do on this riverboat cruise down in New Orleans, and he was there, and I had brought a couple friends of mine from FAMU, and we got on this riverboat with Idris, and Idris had to go on and like say hey and take pictures, and then he was getting off before the boat would depart.
Yeah.
And I got on with him, and he was doing his thing, and it was time for him to go. And he was like, "All right, Pat, you ready?" Right? And I was like, "Yeah, but wait, I gotta find my people." And he was like, "Bro, I gotta go. I got three more parties to host." I was like, "How many parties you doing at one time, brother?" He was like, "I gotta go," and I couldn't find my folks, and I didn't want to leave them. And so I said, "You know what? I'm cool. I'm gonna stay with my folks. You go ahead." Before I could get go ahead out of my mouth, Idris was gone. He was like, "Hey, see you. I'm out." At the same time, on the other side of the boat, there's a young lady named Heather, and she worked with the company who was sponsoring this cruise. And her job was to go on, make sure that the activation was set up and everything went well. And then her and her girlfriends who she was with, they were leaving. They were intending to leave that boat before it
See.
sailed away from, the actual dock. And she couldn't find her girls. And it was time for her to go. And by the time she got all the girls together, she come on. She said, "Come on, we gotta go. We gotta, we were not planning to stay on the boat." As they're walking towards the entrance, they see the boat is pulling away from the dock. So we both ended up stuck on a boat that we were not intending to be on, and that's God. And that is exactly how we met. I saw her. I was at the bar getting a drink. I saw her. She walked past. I tried to speak to her. She wanted nothing to do with it. The first time I said, "Hey, how are you?" She said, "Fine." And she said that fine that women say when they're like, "Please don't say another word to me. Please, I'm begging you. Fine. Just fine. Go on about your business." Like, that's how she did me. She kept going back to her table. So what I did was I couldn't get her out of my mind. And I had a friend that I was with, and he was my my unwitting wingman, is he was drunk. Okay. My friend had had a few too many. So I pointed out the table of Heather and her girls, and I said, "Hey, you see that one over there?" I said, "I'm going to change her life." And he said, "Well, go talk to her." I said, "You know what? I tried. She didn't really give me any flavor." He said, "You know what? I got you, dog. I got you." And I knew he was going to do that. I knew because he was already leading, right?
Classic.
He goes over there and expectantly makes a fool of himself. "Hey, ladies, how you doing? I got this friend over here. He wants to meet you, and you guys should." I don't know what he said. He comes back to me. He's like, "I set you up. You good?" I said, "I bet I am." So of course now I had an opening because I go over to the table and I'm 1,000 apologies. I come over and I'm like, "Ladies, I am so sorry. I apologize. I don't know what my friend said. I don't know why he came over here. I just wanted, hey, what's your name? How are you? How are you?" I introduced myself to all the ladies, and I ended with Heather, the one I really had my eye on. And I said, "I'm Will. What's your name?" She said, "Heather," and the rest is history. Heather has been my rock. She has been my source of inspiration. And I'll leave you with this thought. Oftentimes, we don't realize, I talked about your energy circle, right? The person closest to you that has the biggest effect on your energy is the person that you're in a relationship with, your partner, your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. If you don't have the right one, then when you go out and you are meeting with people, negotiating against people, and somebody on the other side of the table is in a toxic relationship, right? They didn't even want to go home last night because they hate the person that they living with.
Yep.
They woke up this morning, that person couldn't wait to tell them what they did wrong, what they ain't, and what they not doing, right? But if you have somebody on your side that is telling you, "Hey, you got this. I believe in you. Go out there and you slay those dragons." When you sit against that other person, guess who has the advantage? And you can't compartmentalize something like that. Successful people think, you know what? I can compartmentalize it. That's my personal life, this is my business life. That's like having a rotting arm with gangrene in it. And you still saying, it's okay, I can still walk. No, you got to cut that arm off. So Heather has been an incredible support, not just in my love life, not just in my personal life, but in my business life. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for her.
Perfect.
But you and Heather.
Let me get you on some quick rapid fire before we head out. Just talk to us a little bit about what your writing process like. I guess we'll start with this. What was your writing process like?
On the book. Oh man, it was 2 years. 2 years of every vacation, going out first with a tape recorder, then doing interviews, then structuring it, and then actually going in and putting pen to paper to write it. So it was very, very labor intensive. I tell people, don't write a book just because you can. Write a book because you can't, meaning you can't not write the book. When you're at a point where it's like, I have to tell this story, that's when you write the book.
Perfect. On our rapid fire, let's go. What's one thing what's one thing you have to do at the beginning of every day to start on the right foot?
Tell myself how great I am. Tell myself how prepared I am.
Yep. What movie in your discography needs a sequel?
Girls Trip. Easy.
All right. What's a movie or TV show that's not in your discography that you wish you made?
Oh my gosh, so many. Right now, I'm gonna say Severance.
Okay. And then from the book, why did you never tell D-Mac that he stole your car?
Because he knew. D-Mac knew. He knew. D-Mac knew, and I knew. What's understood doesn't need to be said. If you watching this right now, D-Mac, you know you stole my car, and I know you stole it. I'm gonna let you slide on this one, but boy, you wow.
All right. Was there ever another title for the book, or was it always Who Better Than You?
I toyed around with You Ain't That Great, but You Could Be. That was the title for a while until I settled on Who Better Than You. I still like that. It's a good title, but I think Who Better Than You is a question we all need to ask ourselves consistently and make sure you know that the answer is absolutely no one.
All right. And then the last on the rapid fire, what are 3 movies in your discography we should watch this weekend?
Oh, wow. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to say About Last Night. Totally underrated, right? I'm gonna go The Wedding Ringer, another comedy that I really like. I think it's underrated. And then I'm gonna go Trois for nostalgia's sake. The first movie I made after college about a menage a trois gone wrong.
All right, sounds good. The way we end this podcast, you can answer it however you like. What should be in a filmmaker's toolkit?
Confidence.
All right.
Confidence.
Sounds
good. There you go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Everybody get your copy of Who Better Than You. Thank you, Will Packer. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. Take care.